This is an I Am Listening exclusive podcast.
Just go out, make a small corner in your garden, and that's where the wildlife is. You see so much interesting stuff, that small corner will gradually spread all over the garden. But start slowly, no big deal, just make some space. If you want butterflies, you've got to feed caterpillars.
Hello and welcome to this Tread Lightly podcast from us at the Rainham Eco Hub. My name is Kaylee.
And I'm Liz.
And this podcast is where we delve a little bit deeper into those conversations with local everyday heroes that are doing small and impactful changes. We hope that you get as much out of this as me and Liz do, and that you also laugh just as much too. Welcome back to this episode. So this episode, we have got the amazing Leon Roskilly, who is the founder of a local community group in Rainham called Wild About Rainham. He is actually the OG. He was the one who originally started a Facebook group in our town, encouraging people to look at what they can do in their gardens, looking after wildlife and habitats. And we, for sure, have learnt so much about him. So we cannot wait to introduce you to him. Me and Liz are going to spend our lunchtime talking to Leon Roskilly to find out all about him, all about the OG of Wild About Rainham. I said earlier that he was the original eco person of Rainham, and he said, no, there are others.
They're not the OG though.
Not the OG. He is the OG. So hello, Leon. How are you?
Hello, Kaylee. Hello, Liz. Yeah, I'm pretty good today. Bit too much exercise this morning. A long walk through Rainham with the walking group. And
Nice.
Then we did Keep Fit with Becky.
He's got the best social life of anyone that I've ever known.
Where did you walk to today? Where was your walk?
Through Berengrave Lane, turned off down the footpaths there,
nice.
Down towards the estuary, back up along the railway bridge and back that way.
Really nice.
Yeah, it's good.
Perfect segue into what makes Leon Rainham famous.
A guy came up to me today and said, "Are you Leon Roskilly?"
Yes, he did.
Did he have an
ask
autograph book?
Yes, I was just about to say that. Did he ask you for your autograph?
No, but he heard people calling me Leon and suddenly it clicked.
That's really cool.
And I'm a little bit uneasy about that kind of
Why?
thing because, there's so many other people doing so many amazing things around Rainham. The way news and media concentrates on individuals,
Yeah.
I don't like that very much.
No, I do hear you, but I think it's really easy when I think it's harder being you in the sense that when other people see something in somebody and they want to celebrate that or they're wowed by that, that's nice of that person because they look at you. I look at you as though like I aspire to be like you and have your knowledge and your brains one day. And I think it's nice that other people have that. But I do get that you might think I am just little old Leon. You're all just as equally as important. And although that is true, you've done loads in your life, and I know we won't be able to cover that all on one podcast, but for those of that don't know, let me just scale back. You started a Facebook group called Wild About Rainham, which has got over 1,000 people on it. Tell me how and why that started.
I've always been interested in nature, the natural world, and I'm fearful we're losing so much of our biodiversity these days. And people don't seem to realise what's disappearing from our lives and how much that affects us and how much we depend upon nature. I guess what really started it was seeing so much housing going up in Rainham. Areas that were full of wildlife, just flattened, cleared of all the scrub. Hedgehogs, dormice, wood mice, everything just swept away by the bulldozers. Badgers and foxes might be able to escape the bulldozing, but they lose their foraging areas.
Lose their food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where they sleep? Is that kind of what?
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, it's okay to preserve a badger set, but badgers need a wide range of foraging land to find their food sources. And unfortunately, when you build all over it,
it's gone for good, right?
Yeah, and that badger set will become empty at some point in time because they just can't survive on what's left. And it's people don't really appreciate nature quite so much and exactly what's at risk here. Nature isn't a nice to have. It's something that we all depend upon. We lose our biodiversity, our means of production of food, our own mental health all suffers all the time. And we may realise this when it's far too late. So that was the key to getting me involved, trying to bring to the attention of people in Rainham just how much all of the biodiversity means to us and how much we're losing. When I set up Wild About Rainham, I thought there may be sort of like 70 other people involved, and now we're well over 1,000 members of the Facebook group.
Yeah.
It's so active as well, isn't it? There's like a notification saying that someone's posted something on it nearly every day. And that was really nice, is that you didn't leave it as your voice. It was very much a group. You invited other people to share as well. What kind of stuff gets posted on there? What kind of things can people see?
Well, people post about what's happening in their own garden, discussions about the butterflies, discussions about why we're not seeing hedgehogs so much these days. Basically, people get pulled into the conservations. You said you were inspired, Kaylee, and that's the thing I like to hear. People come up to me and say, I've put in a pond in my garden because I heard.
But do you know why it inspired me? Because it was at a level that I could understand. And I know I bang on about this a lot, but because it is normal everyday people and you've got a beautiful way of being able to explain things in very much my terms, like in a basic way. But you give so much information. I don't mean that in a horrible way. I mean that you're able to explain sort of like stuff that I can get. And you talking about badgers, I said to my family, I haven't seen a live badger for like a long time. I saw a dead one a couple of I don't know, years ago when I was driving to work up through the country lanes, and I hadn't seen one for honestly ages. And the day after that, my kids were walking up the alley and a badger went running down the alley, but because it was trapped in this alley, my son had to jump his legs apart and it ran through his legs. And
Bloody hell, that's
but it was
so cool.
huge. He said it was absolutely massive. So like when I hear stuff like that, I post it on that group because I think that made me feel so happy that I didn't even see it, but that I'd heard that my family had seen it, that then other people go, oh.
And I think just to chip in on that, Liam, where you are, where you inspire people is that you don't just say, this is really crap, this is terrifying, we need to be doing this. You've gone and done it, and then you show the wildlife that just flocks to your garden. So you go, oh, it actually works as well, because your garden is teeming with wildlife. Tell us about your garden.
Well, the garden is slightly larger than the average garden because I'm on at the end of a close and it fans out. I originally moved there because I grew my own vegetables organically. And
Yum, yum.
Until the kids grew up and there was just the two of us left there. And it really broke my back digging potatoes and things. So I grassed the whole area over. Now, the wildlife have been part of that organic gardening. You need wildlife if you're going to grow food organically because you're not using pesticides and things. And you need to encourage an ecological balance where you put up with some slug damage, but you've got things there helping you by eating some of the slugs. And I noticed I wasn't getting visited by hedgehogs, stopped seeing frogs. And I decided I really needed to do something about that. And so I started to investigate wildlife gardening to see what I could do.
When was this, just roughly?
Oh, dear me. Maybe 10 years ago. So
I think that's really important to know, because do you mind people knowing how old you are? Are you coming up to a big
at all,
birthday?
no. A very big birthday. Yeah.
Leon's coming up to the 80. So are you saying when you was about 70, you then started discovering, you obviously already knew, but you just started to relearn a different...
Yeah, rather than using nature to produce organic crops for myself, I started to devote the garden to nature and try and attract as much nature as I possibly could.
I love that. And I love that it, like you're saying, like, it was never always that way.
Because I think, don't you think that?
I just think it's so
I
relevant,
think everyone always thinks, oh, you've either always got to be like that. Whereas you're saying at 70, you were like, no, I'm just going to
learn and think differently and research and stuff. That's so...
Anyway, sorry, I cut you off. Sorry.
You did cut him off, and then I was like, whoa, good point.
Sorry, go on.
And it's all been one big experiment or a series of experiments. I do things I don't know if they're going to work or not, or try them out. I put in a couple of small ponds, micro ponds they call them, because one's
cute.
just an upturned dustbin lid. The other one's a plastic planter filled with water and some bricks so that things can climb out. Introduce some pondweed and some daphnia. And I was amazed at the wildlife that quickly
Suddenly
moved
appeared,
into that.
yeah.
And I was just cleaning it out the other day. Frogs. It's thumbnail-sized frogs.
Wow.
There's frogs almost as big as my fist.
So how and why did you clean it out? What's the thinking behind that? Because I don't clean my pond out. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, the bankside vegetation was basically overgrown.
Oh,
the
too
pond,
much.
And there was hardly any light getting into there. So I
Gotcha.
just cleared away some of the bankside vegetation.
Gotcha.
I'm
sorry.
glad you asked that, because I was sitting there thinking,
Do you have to take all the water out of the pond? And this is where it's so good that Leon just
no.
lets you ask, because I think otherwise I'd have gone, we need to empty all the water out of our pond.
But do you know what I love about when you put your pictures up of your garden, and especially like your ponds and stuff? Like you post about them like you're their proud grandparent.
Yeah.
Like, these are my little toads, my little frogs in there. I loved, didn't you?
It's so cool.
It is cute. Go on, sorry. We keep cutting you off because we're so excited. Go on.
Yeah, getting fond of the creatures that live in the garden.
Don't name them.
It's something I try very hard not to do, especially the hedgehogs.
But here you are with their names now, aren't they, Leon? Let's be real. That didn't work.
Hedgehogs are your love, aren't they? I think you're the first one who taught me about hedgehog highways.
All right. Great. So that's another win.
Tell us about
Hedgehog
hedgehog
highways.
highways, Leon.
Yeah, well, people keep saying to me that they haven't seen a hedgehog for years. And you look at their garden, and there's no way a hedgehog would be able to get into their garden. It's all panel fencing with concrete gravel boards. And I think that is probably one of the reasons we rarely see hedgehogs these days. Because a hedgehog needs at least 5 average-sized gardens to forage over
Wow.
to find enough food. And will travel over a mile a night. They know all their little runs and the places they need to go and where there's food.
What, their little legs?
Yeah.
Go a mile a night?
Gosh, you should see them run. they they stand up on their legs.
No, they don't.
They do.
Do they?
I'm
They
knackered
do,
if I
yeah.
walk a mile.
And their legs are like
Literally no
mini.
excuse, is there?
Yeah, when they move, they really can move.
Oh.
And you've rescued a few, is that right? Or are these all your kind of native friends that lived there anyway?
Yeah, no, they are taken from the rescue centres. It's always best to return a hedgehog to an area that it knows where the food is and runs. But sadly, a lot of people find a hedgehog under the shed and they're not interested in looking after it. So.
And I guess you have to presume that house and that area is good enough for the hedgehog, whereas I guess if it's returned to you, it's got a feast right in front of it, hasn't it?
Yeah. I specialise in breeding, making hedgehogs fat.
You're a feeder. You are what we call a feeder.
A feeder or a breeder? Are you trying to
Yeah,
get them
a feeder.
trying to like matchmake as well?
Might be a breeder, yeah. I've got
I think this is why you're famous, mate, because I think all of the wildlife know where it's at.
Where it's at. Oh, Leon, can you imagine that day that you catch a hedgehog baby on your camera?
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh.
I have had one small hedgehog, but not the tiny babies.
No
What
tiny
camera?
babies. What camera?
my night camera.
Tell me.
Yes, I needed to know what was going on in the garden at night.
Literally needed to, didn't you?
I was a little concerned that maybe all this food I was putting out might be attracting rats, and so I bought myself a wildlife camera to see what was going on out there. And fortunately, no rats, because I think the foxes deal with any rats.
Take care of the rats. Wow.
Yeah, and the rats are wise enough not to stay around too long where foxes visit often.
That's good, isn't it?
Good to know.
Yeah, and the fact that we've got urban foxes patrolling their streets at night is the reason why you don't wake up in the morning and see 20 or 30 rats at the rubbish that people have left out all night.
Really? Taking care of the rats?
You get complaints about the foxes, and usually it's the covids and the seagulls that tear the bags apart, but people blame the foxes for tearing rubbish bags apart.
That's such a good point. Imagine life without them.
Yeah.
Suddenly have rats ripping your bags open.
You'd have rats everywhere.
Absolutely not. I mean, I'm not against rats. I'm sure they're lovely. I'm sure they serve their purpose.
You'd rather have a sexy old
I'd
fox.
rather have a sexy old fox in my garden than have 20 rats, because that just fills me with I don't know what.
Rats in the garden aren't really a problem. It's if they get into the house, then they chew through things.
I guess they're still owl
eat
food.
food.
Yeah.
Rats in the house is probably a no-no. But rats in the garden, they are actually very clean creatures. They're very intelligent.
Yeah, I read that actually.
Yeah, and they're very good.
I think it's
they're
just
young.
the scuttle for me, Leon.
People who keep pet rats, they're so friendly and intelligent.
Yeah, I think they get a bit of a bad rep, don't they? I think that's probably a podcast for another day, and learning to love them. But the fact that you've not got any, I guess, is testament to how much wildlife you have got. Do you want to live more sustainably, but you just don't know where to start?
Did you, like me, sign up for Veganuary and accidentally buy chicken sausages on day 2?
Does the whole eco thing leave you feeling confused and sometimes overwhelmed? If so, this is the podcast for you.
Remember to check us out on our socials on Facebook and Instagram, the Rainham Eco Hub.
Point I was going to make some way back was that you don't get too fond of your creatures in the garden, because everything is trying to eat everything else. So you work really hard to make an environment that produces lots of beetles. Fascinating to watch beetles around and see the different types and to learn of their place within the hierarchy. But then the hedgehog comes along and eats them.
And eats them all, yeah, that's mad.
Because what did you see when... I didn't even notice this. This is how useless I am. But Leon come and had a look in my garden because I needed some Leon advice. And there was like a whole bunch of feathers. And he was like, oh, yeah, sparrowhawk's been here. Like, what? And then since you said that, do you know there's been about 3 or 4 different other spatters of feathers in my garden?
What are they eating? What are the sparrowhawks after?
They're after the birds.
Not babies.
They'll take fledglings, but they also take mice. So again, your garden's got nicely wild now, Kaylee. Thank you. And there'll be a lot of birds feeding on the seed heads out there. There'll be wood mice also feeding on the seed heads.
Is there really? Do you reckon?
And because there's lots of little mice, probably voles running around, lots of birds feeding off your, I was going to say lawn, but meadow.
That's a beautiful word, thank you.
I've got a meadow.
I've got a
and
meadow.
to think like all what Leon's describing, like a year ago it was a lawn.
Normal lawn, yeah.
And not that it wasn't beautiful and well looked after, but just
different.
Yeah.
We have had a conversation, Leon and I, today, though, because I've basically made it very, very difficult for myself to look after going forward. So I need to rethink next year how I do it.
Yeah, Kaylee's got a huge garden, which is very difficult to look after. And lots of people have this problem, big gardens or too much work. A wildlife garden is much less work than a formal garden.
That's what I was going for.
But you still have to do quite a lot of work at certain times of the year. You need to cut down all that grass and long vegetation in the meadow area once a year.
And I guess this is that thing, what you were saying earlier about you do something, work out if it works, and then you just have to try and see where you go, isn't it? And then adjust.
So let's work on them. So last year, Kaylee had one plain lawn. Let's work on what we would, if we were bringing Leon in as an expert. So we've got a nice big garden that's mainly lawn. I guess what would be your first recommendation, or what was your first recommendation to Kaylee as to what she could do to make that garden more wildlife friendly?
Yeah, I'd advise everybody just to start off with a small area of the garden to make wildlife friendly. Kayla's got a pond.
I have.
Pond.
It's well sexy, by the way.
Well fit. It's a fit pond.
When I was a kid, I'd spend hours. We had a pond in our backyard, just lying on my stomach, watching everything that was moving about in there. The old glass milk bottles, use those as a pond scope.
That's a good idea.
What? Tell me that.
Just push the. You can do it with a jam jar or anything that you can see at the bottom.
5 glass bottles. Didn't know what to do with.
5 glass bottles. sorry, go on.
Lay on your stomach and just see what's happening a foot or so down.
That is very clever. So we can give them out. I've still got some from our milkman.
Ooh,
yep.
So we've lost the plot again.
There's a surprise.
Yes, looking after a wildlife garden. There's what you're aiming for is to cram in as many habitats as possible into a very small space. If you go down, say, the country park, you won't see a lot of biodiversity there. As a whole, more than in your garden, yes, but if you look at an area the size of a garden, there's not very much biodiversity. So we need to create different areas. A pile of logs, brilliant. The logs rot down into the soil. The beetles move in underneath where they're rotting. You'll get stag beetles almost certainly in this area. They'll be 5-7 years the larva eating that wood as it rots down from the bottom.
That stag beetle larva is mad, isn't it? It's really big. And that's super cheap. It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah. And you'll get logs for free from wood surgeons, tree surgeons, sorry.
Or do what I did and just put a post on Wild about Rainham.
They delivered, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a kind man come and deliver 8 bags of logs to my garden.
I need to have a look at that. That is very cool. But yeah, like one habitat just out of logs. That's cool.
Yeah, I saw a big pile of wood chuck outside Roskilly the other night.
That's been there a little bit too long, hasn't it? We desperately need to move that. But
I'll have some.
You want it? Don't get it from my drive. Get him to reverse it up your drive.
Reverse it up my drive. Oh, that's another podcast for another day, Liz. Gosh. So, Leon, go on.
Yeah, a pond is essential. Again. Yeah, a pond is essential in a wildlife garden. Think about, instead of filling up the brown bin, make what I call a habitat pile.
I love your habitat pile.
Yeah,
why have I missed this? Yeah, what is it?
It's just a load of branches and dead plant material piled up every year, and it slowly sinks down, and you add more to it the following year.
How's that different to a compost heap?
It is like a compost heap, but a compost heap you're aiming to produce compost in a very short time. This is just something that ages, and it becomes full of spiders and beetles, which feeds lots of other stuff. Wood mice go in there. I've had robins nest in there. Hedgehogs, certainly, yeah.
Don't kill me, but I've just trimmed our willow tree and I've just put them in the brown bin. So what? Tell me this. So what do I need to do? Do I need to make something to put them in?
There's 2 things you can do. One is called a dead hedge, which you put stakes into the ground and then pile all the material and turn it into like a hedge.
I've seen them.
What, like weave it? Is this what we saw at Kent Wildlife Trust?
Yes.
Probably.
So it's kind of like a weave, what they did, but not. It's like in and out of a... No?
I think you can just lay it, couldn't you? You could just lay it. I think theirs look sexy. They can just be.
Or you can just pile it all up into a big untidy mess.
Okay, well I can do that because I can do mess. All right. So a dead hedge, is that called? Mm-hmm. What else? Pond, a little area for wildlife.
Mm-hmm. Beneath my apple tree, I leave all the fallen leaves and the fallen apples. In the spring, it's covered in snowdrops. Snowdrops and the daffodils die down, and then we get what's called lady's bedstraw, or cleavers everywhere, climb up each other. Just leave it alone. I mean, most gardeners will clear that out. It's you just let it die down.
And it's so cool and so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And after that, there's wood bindweed takes over, and perhaps some stinging nettles. I'll remove stinging nettles from that area, and then all the leaves fall down on that, and that's feeding an amazing amount of wildlife. The apples drop down into that. The ones that are no good and not going to make good eating apples because they got maggots in. But apples with maggots in are good eating. But yeah, the wildlife will take
Perfect
that.
for wildlife.
No, it's cool. It's damp. Lots of frogs under there. So yeah, just a little area. Never be too tidy if you're a gardener.
I think you have to buy the things that you hang on the wall and bird boxes and bug hotels, but you really don't, do you?
I've got something really cool to tell you, actually. You've just reminded me as you just said that. So do you remember, I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but I got made a bat box, right? And I think you may have said to me, it's good to have a bat box. However, sometimes bats don't really like to go into the houses and stuff. Well, a lady come into one of our groups yesterday, and she's got a bat box in her house, and she's got loads of bats in her box. I was a little bit envious because I haven't got any, but
We only had it a week though.
yeah, day. But how cool is that? Bat boxes, bird boxes. Yeah, you think you need to have all of those things, and they are lovely, aren't they? But not necessarily. There are low level stuff that you can do first before you have to go and buy stuff.
Bats, ponds. You get lots of wiggly things appear in the pond, and they're the larvae of midges and mosquitoes sometimes. But that's food for the bats. So your wildlife pond, no fish in the wildlife pond, by the way.
I've only just discovered that.
They eat all the wildlife. But the midges, having a hedge, bats love to follow a line of a hedge, and they'll go backwards and forwards over a hedge, again because there's lots of insects go there. Fantastic stuff. So you can even attract bats into your garden.
It's mad, isn't it? And to think that when we first started all of this, it was around stopping mowing because the flowers are pretty, and then as we've been learning so much more about it, all the stuff that actually comes from those first steps.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Very cool. Leon, you're amazing.
Thank you so much for spending your afternoon chatting to us. I could probably ask you 5 million other questions, so I think if you would, if your brain can put up with us for another episode, we'd love to have you back.
Do the trees of Rainham.
Oh, I'd love that.
Let's talk trees one day.
That would be so good. But
I'll bring my soapbox, shall I?
Soapbox, yeah, because you're a lover of trees, aren't you? You are. But for now, lasting words, Leon?
Yeah, just go out, make a small corner in your garden, and that's where the wildlife is. You'll see so much interesting stuff. That small corner will gradually spread all over the garden. But start slowly, no big deal, just make some space. If you want butterflies, you've got to feed caterpillars.
Yes, love that.
And if you're intrigued by anything that Leon has said, then go and check him out at Wild About Rainham.
Thank you for listening to the Rainham Eco Hub's Tread Lightly podcast. If, like us, you're trying to be more sustainable, then like and subscribe to get notified when we release new episodes, or even better, share with your friends and family. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and thank you for joining us. Stay safe, keep going, and find us on socials. Cheers, guys.
This has been an I Am Listening exclusive podcast. For more information, head over to our website, im-listening.co.uk.